I wanted to do a quick update here, just driving first thing in the morning. Haven't done anything, and you know, I didn't want to come across as rude or anything yesterday with my thing with the Barrington sisters, where it just looked like fraud with their thing. Specifically, also, they have that thing with they have the photo of their truck with the dog box, and the dog box and shit looks totally intact and fine. So to suggest that they need $50,000 and maybe all this other money is because they need a dog box, that's disingenuous too. They need a truck replaced. They're getting money from their insurance. These people are just personally fundraising and doing it in a sort of a fraudulent and deceiving way, disingenuous way. Now, I just want to talk about. I want to title this "The Rise of the I Did It Hoe." You know what I mean? And hoe is a slang for prostitute, whore. But I think it's really hard with some of these women. And I think you look at back to Susan Butcher. She was closely working with Joe Reddington Sr. back in the day, and as an apprentice, and there's a pattern within this thing where she got her own. But you look at like even Monica Zappa with Tim Osmore. I mean, these are people who are, I think, originally basically employees, and then they're in relationships with their employer and begin exchanging sex and romance for access to sled dogs and access to racing sled dogs. And is this a combination of them being, you know, loose and loose women and like a hoe, or is this them being taken advantage of? And there's quite a few out there. It's not like there's and the Barrington sisters and other ones in Kenai there. And I think it's a pattern ingrained with the dog mushers in Kenai that they do that. Even John Little, who was running Dave Shearer's team, he bought Dave Shearer's house. He hired his wife, Bree. And I think that there's something to be said with the lifestyle and the uniqueness and the remoteness of it. However, you get into it where, in a lot of instances, I think that doesn't really work out, and the employer-employee thing doesn't really work out that well that way. And being in a situation where your room and board is completely you're working for room and board, maybe a stipend or something, and you're basically at the whim of this person, this musher, and you're 24/7 on call, and you're doing all this work, and it's kind of a human trafficking type scenario where you have young females hired by male mushers, or just young people in general hired by mushers and are in slave labor, trading slave labor, or they are trading for, and they somehow get in a relationship. And, you have to wonder in some of these instances, is those relationships where the power is so imbalanced and basically employer-employee, is it instigated in part, and it probably varies, but is it instigated in part by, I think Zoe De Niro up in Denali Park is another one. Is it instigated by the women, or the handler, or the musher, a combination? Someone could say it takes two. Well, it doesn't take two to run your business in a way that's illegal. You know what I mean? If you're running a business, you should be having to pay your employee by the hour, and you should be following the proper laws with regard to your business. And, anyway, I just thought it was under the microscope with regard to the issues with the Barringtons and their fraudulent portrayal of their loss of their truck. You can look at the truck is intact. If it's a total loss due to the front damage to the truck due to the accident prior to the start of the 2018 Iditarod, no one's hurt and everything like that, but dog box is totally intact. The internal part, everything in the truck was fine. You know what I mean? It's not like there was a big fire and everything was totally incinerated and they lost the dog box. If the vehicle's a total loss, they're going to get money from their insurance company to replace that vehicle. And nothing in their GoFundMe page anywhere mention anything about any of that. The photo shows the truck, but your make and model's not there, etc. It is disingenuous, and what it really brought back to me was that Willow couple, that Jamie High and the Justin High, who were working for DD and who had the repeat house fires, and they kept losing their house with the house fires there in Willow, and working as a handler in some weird room and board and exchange and the money, and it's like, he's got all kinds of cabins and stuff, and there was really but they were not insured, so if these guys are insured, they should have money from their insurance for their truck. They're just fundraising, you know what I mean? But they're using this incident in sort of a fraudulent way. They're tying into this incident as a sort of a sympathy pitch to try to get attention, but without giving the full details. So it's kind of fraudulent, but it really makes me think, with regard to that portrayal, are these girls Iditarod? You know what I mean? Because I kind of go at it like human trafficking. When I look at like Paul Gephardt, Tim Osmore, Dean Osmore, and other male mushers bringing young females to Alaska, getting in relationships with them, and then, sometimes various degrees this works out, and I think remote places. Who do you want to be sitting with over coffee? A guy, you see it a lot of times, young women working construction, whatever. But, in bigger communities where it's not just a one-on-one personal basis all winter and no days off and, room and board and stipend, a little shed, it's human trafficking. But, and of course, the employer in all those situations is unfortunately 100% responsible for creating that scenario where there's an imbalance of power and where there is the potential for relationships, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But, but are these Idaho's? You know what I mean? I don't want to say in a rude way, but I think it's a funny way. But, these girls don't seem to feel like they need to really follow the proper boundaries with this GoFundMe thing, and they think that, they're kind of misrepresenting things that, do they just come up here and, I just see it with Blair Broderman from Wisconsin, who's doing some writing, and she wrote a book. She was up there, and she wrote some things that sort of made it like she was taken advantage of in a musher camp type situation by a different musher or something like that. And then you can see very transparently on social media, she's all huggy and kissy with the Ryan Reddington and his dad, Ramey, and left the dogs there basically in bed with the Reddingtons there on KGB Road, who work at Iditarod headquarters. And you see her hugging Ramey Reddington on Twitter, photo of it, and shoving her breasts, her cleavage in his face. Now this really, to me, these girls are hoes. That's a hoe behavior, it's sort of inappropriate too. This is a married guy, and he's sure, rolling out the red carpet. He probably wants Blair and Quincy to write good things about him and his program and to do good public relations, but not necessarily, he probably wants the, he's probably polished a little bit for them and not on his everyday thing. I think that's fair, and I pointed that out as well. But are these guys, that's not really this is a married guy, a hug with breasts and cleavage in his face. This is something that girl Blair is doing that's clearly giving it, it's crossing the line into some behavior that's a little bit sexually suggestive, and that sort of thing. I think a lot of these women are the instigators in a lot of these things. You know what I mean? Because you're going into, you know what I mean. But it's a two-way street. So it's probably on a case-by-case basis. But I think within the dog mushing community, the trend of human trafficking is so deeply ingrained within these mushers, and the like I was saying, Jesse Holmes, has used to be a friend of mine, I helped him get him started and stuff, but, this guy is just bringing young foreign girls up, this is handlers, and, you're in an animal else is there, you want to sit there and have a young girl around, of course, but, there's a point in here where this is just blatant human trafficking, unless these people are employed and it's legal and above board, and I think the vast percentage of dog mushers is not done that way. So, and I think in a lot of instances it doesn't work out in terms of the dog musher and the handler and relationships like that, and you just don't see that as public and as loud as some of the ones that do work out. But I think, really in the Kenai Peninsula, the Barringtons and, Monica Zappa and blah blah blah. It's just there's so much of this Idaho. Why can't these girls get their own outfit and and not be in relationships with the mushers? How many women are in it and are doing well as a musher and not in a relationship with someone to get there? You know what I mean? In a sexual romantic relationship to get there is the pathway towards there. Is that the pathway for a young female? And it really gets into my analogy towards drug dealers, with the dog mushing community, where the dog musher is basically, it's not taxable. It's this weird thing, and it's basically like the dogs are like a drug, and they hold the drug over their handler or their worker or other people on the access to the drug. People want just to have sex. They want to do whatever they can to get that drug. They don't care. They're going to do whatever they can to get access to that drug, because that's what that's what fulfills them and everything like that. So I think that the human trafficking issue is. And I think it's really bad, because when I was younger, I went to Alaska and I was in my late teens, and I was working for room board or whatever, and it really was, I wasn't able to go out and socialize with other people, and it really looking back on it, it was it created the space for me to master that industry and that skill set for sure, because of the focus and everything. There was no distractions. But on the other hand, in your late teens, your early 20s, it's not the right way it's an illegal way because you need to be compensated for overtime. You need to be able to have time off. You need to all these other things. It's blatant human trafficking, and it's I think in Martin and Dee Dee and Jeff and all these other people, these guys are felons. These aren't good people. These are felons, and they're bad people. They have very bad behaviors. In terms of their interactions with other people, and their animal cruelty as well. And I think you can see that these people don't have the perimeters or the boundaries of normal citizens, and they've left all that behind, and they think they can do what they want and break the laws that they want. And I think that they need to be held accountable. You know what I mean? And I think that the system needs to be changed and improved so that this behavior pattern of the human trafficking and of all the sexual relationships with employer-employees, with the dog mushers and the no time off, the no just the room on board, the weird stuff, all of that stuff needs to be needs to sort of stop and not negatively programmed into all the successive generations coming up. And some people don't want to talk. Fuck them. These are crimes. These are criminals. And for the Barron sisters, whatever their story is, they're fraudulently on GoFundMe, and I think they're getting money from insurance for the truck. Their dog box looks fine. They're fraudulently on GoFundMe and just trying to raise money and trying to tie it to an incident that has nothing to do with anything. So I think it's a problem for that community where you see those dog mushers, and it's not about a social mission. It's not about it's not about trying to do good. It's about personal ego. It's about personal materialism, and it's about personal stuff. And I think that really is sad. That gets away from the mission of the nonprofit, and it gets away from the soul and heart of Alaska, especially in light of the fact that these people are from the lower 48 and that they were in sexual relationships and trading sex for sled dogs, and and granted, were they just human trafficking? Was this not their fault? You know what I mean? And of course, the accident was not their fault, but their presentation of their GoFundMe page was certainly disingenuous and fraudulent. So anyway.